For the record, I am State Senator Ben Brown of the 26th District, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for the opportunity to present Senate Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 986. In 2024, the voters of the state approved Amendment 7, which enshrined in our Constitution that only U.S. citizens should have the right to vote in our elections. This measure was met with overwhelming bipartisan approval. The people of the state have made it clear where they stand on this issue, and it is now incumbent upon us to ensure that we follow through on this mandate and that it isn't enforced. It is for this reason that I filed Senate Bill 986. This bill creates a requirement to provide documentary proof of citizenship when registering to vote. Documentary proof of citizenship is defined in the bill and reflects the requirements set forth in the Real ID Act of 2005, but also includes additional means of proving citizenship in order to mitigate any burden that could potentially be placed on those who are qualified but not yet registered to participate in our elections. To this end, I made additional changes to this year's version so that even if a person doesn't have access to any of the listed documents, they could still be verified. The added language states, when processing a voter registration application, the election authority shall use all available resources to verify the applicant as a citizen of the United States, including the relevant information from the following. And it lists off the Department of Revenue's electronic database, the U.S. Social Security Administration database, the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services Systematic Alien Verification for Entitlements Program, that one's a mouthful, any other federal, state, or political subdivision database, and any other database relating to voter registration to which the election authority has it or is granted access. To facilitate this process, the bill also states that to the extent allowed under applicable law, the election authority shall enter into agreements with the entities described on page 8 in order to allow them to request information relating to verification of individual citizenship status. These include the Department of Revenue, the U.S. Social Security Administration, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Systematic Alien Verification for Entitlements Program, a National Association for Public Health Statistics and Information Systems Electronic Verification of Vital Events System, or similar statewide database. I also took precautions to ensure this bill was only applicable to new registrants and would not require those already registered or those who moved to a different county to have to provide additional documentation in order to simply maintain the registration status they already had. At the end of the registration process, if someone's citizenship could not be verified, they would then receive a notification in writing. The notification would state that they could only be registered as a federal-only voter, meaning that they could still vote in all federal elections, but could not vote in state and local ones. It would also provide instructions on how to submit documentary proof of citizenship in order to be classified as a fully verified voter rather than a federal-only voter. Last year, there were also concerns expressed over potentially ending up in a complicated bifurcated system, similar to what they had in Arizona with two separate voter registration forms. One for federal only, which requires no proof of citizenship, and one which would include all state, local, and federal elections, which would require proof of citizenship. In order to simplify the process, I utilized a method borrowed from a provision on a similar bill in Texas. It essentially would designate federal-only voters as a sub-precinct. Rather than creating a bifurcated voter roll, you would simply add a field to the voter registration database that designates whether the voter is federal-only or a fully verified voter. Federal-only voters would only be qualified to vote in federal elections, so any votes cast towards any state or local candidate or ballot measure would not be counted. Ballots cast by a federal-only voter would be treated in the same manner as a provisional ballot, and the voter would still have until the close of the polling place to provide documentary proof of citizenship. If proof of citizenship is provided, then all votes cast on that voter's ballot shall be counted, and the election authority would update the voter's registration record as a verified voter. It also contains a few common sense provisions to aid in the maintenance of our existing voter rolls. For instance, it would require the clerk of each circuit to transmit a monthly list of all people who identified themselves as not being a U.S. citizen in order to disqualify themselves from jury duty. The proof of citizenship requirement has already been passed in 9 other states, including Mississippi, New Hampshire, Ohio, Louisiana, Arizona, New Hampshire, Kansas, Alabama, and Georgia. Considering the mandate that we were given by the voters with the overwhelming approval of Amendment 7, I believe we have the responsibility to ensure that this policy is enforced and that the will of the voters is upheld. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.